Good morning again, everyone. Really happy to have you here with me today. Today, I'm not just going to talk about how to write a sustainability report. I'm going to talk about why it matters and why it matters now more than ever. Simply think of sustainable reporting just like your financial reporting. It's not optional or a nice to have. It's now a tool for business survival. By the end of this session, I want you to walk away with just one mindset shift. Sustainability reporting is now as serious as your balance sheet. If you can't show where you stand on climate and sustainability, you risk losing funding. That means banks won't lend you, investors won't back to you, and customers won't choose you. It's that simple. Before we dive in, a little bit about eco-sustainability. We help companies take their first step on their sustainability journey. Our HQ is in Singapore, and we have teams across Indonesia, Malaysia, Thailand, and the Philippines. And the great news is you will get to meet most of them as we run free weekly talks just like this one. So stay connected. Okay, our core expertise is sustainability reporting. We work across globally recognized standards such as ISSB, SASB, ISO 14064, 14067, and 14068, covering everything from ESG disclosure to GHG reporting, carbon neutrality, and product carbon footprint. In total, we work across 17 standards, including assurance. And beyond reporting, we also offer consulting, carbon credit projects, and training. And there's one thing we're very proud of. We actually have a policy arm called Climate Policy Lab. That's where we do active standards contribution work at the global level. So you might be wondering, what exactly is standards contribution? So let me make it simple for you. First, they are standard setters. So the big names like ISSB, SASB, GHG Protocol, SPTI, and Vera, they create the rules. And then they are the standard users. The preparers who write the reports, the auditors, regulators, and data companies, they follow the rules. But there is also a unique group that sits right in the middle, and that's where we come in as standards contributors. So what that means is we provide technical commentary directly to the standards setters, helping shape and improve the standards through exposure drafts and technical consultations. In short, we don't just use the standards, we actually help build them backed by our real on-the-ground working experience. Quick housekeeping before we start. This session is recorded for learning purposes. Please keep your mic muted so we can keep the audio clean. Got any questions? Just drop that in the chat. My team will answer or we can cover them in the Q&A session. And please don't hold back on your questions. The only real mistake is staying silent and not asking. So by the end of the day, you will walk away with 5 things. 1, a clear understanding of what the ISSB framework is, not just in theory, but in simple business language. 2, a new way of seeing sustainability reporting, not a compliance exercise just to tick boxes, but a strategic management tool. 3, the very first practical steps to start your own report, even for an SME. 4, the confidence to talk about sustainability with your management, auditors, banks, and clients. And the last one, a clear connection between sustainability disclosure and what it means for your business in terms of long-term value, risk management, and access to capital. So now let's get into it. What exactly is sustainability reporting? I like to think of it as the company's annual health checkup. For example, when you visit a doctor, the doctor will check your heartbeat, your blood pressure, and your overall wellness. And sustainability reporting does the same, but it's for your business, of course. It looks at your environmental and social vitals, such as your energy use, your employee well-being, how responsible is your sourcing, and your governance practices. So here's a simple way to think about it. Your financial report tells you how much you earned this year. Your sustainability report tells you whether you can keep making money in the future without being disrupted by rising costs, climate risk, or social issues. And to keep things simple throughout the session, I'll refer to sustainability reporting as SR. So whenever you hear me say SR, you know what I mean. I know many people tend to think SR is about looking good, showing how many trees you have planted, talking about charity, a list of CSR activities. That's actually not what SR is. SR is a business disclosure exercise. It's a structure, data-driven disclosure on how environmental, social, and governance issues affect your business performance, your risk, and your future cash flows. That is why today the regulators, the investor and major customers won't ask, what good things are you doing? They actually ask, what are your risks? What are your numbers? And what's your plan? So now that we know what SR is, let's take a look at what it actually measures. SR covers three big areas, and you might have heard of this term before, ESG, which stands for environmental, social, and governance. Essentially, it helps answer three key questions. First, are you managing your environmental footprint responsibly? Things like your carbon emission, energy consumption, water usage, and waste management. Second, are you taking care of your people and communities? Things like your employee safety, fair wages, diversity, and how you impact the communities around you. And the last one, are you running the business ethically and transparently? Things like your board structure, anti-corruption policies, and how decisions are made at the top. All this will give you a well-rounded picture of how sustainable and resilient your company really is, not just financially, but operationally and socially as well. So remember, SR isn't just about the environment, it's about how your companies perform and behaves. And you might be wondering, where do companies actually start? Normally, most companies start with electricity bills, fuel consumption, and water usage. Why? Because these are exactly tracked for operational or finance purposes. They are also very easy to gather, which is why they naturally become the first piece of the reporting puzzle. And once the foundation is in place, companies gradually move into the social and governance areas. Things like employee well-being, community impact, ethics, and board oversight. So the ESG journey usually starts with what's already measured and expand as your company builds maturity and confidence. Think of it as a marathon, not a sprint. You don't have to get everything right on day one. It actually takes time to build. So once company starts reporting, the next question is, do you ever think of why do they keep doing it? Because SR is about trust and transparency. It helps your investors, customers, and employees see that your business is well managed, responsible, and thinking long term. It also strengthens risk management, helping your company anticipate disruption, your supply chain issues, or regulatory changes before they become costly problems. And very often, you'll be surprised, SR actually leads to greater efficiency. So when you start measuring your energy, water, or waste, you will actually discover savings and improvements you didn't know existed. Besides that, lenders and customers are increasingly assessing your sustainability performance before they engage you. And by doing SR, you can actually open doors to financing, to tenders, and to new market opportunities. So company, they don't just report to comply. They report because it makes them more resilient, more competitive in the market, and more future ready. Okay, this is where SR becomes truly meaningful. You know, when companies start compiling their ESG data, like I mentioned earlier, they often uncover insights that lead directly to better decisions. It could be reducing resource use, improving processes, or identifying hidden costs that they don't even know existed. Besides that, better reporting also opens up financial opportunities. Nowadays, I'm sure you know, many banks offer sustainability-linked loans. So, stronger ESG performance can actually translate into better loan rates. And your sustainability efforts can directly impact your cost of borrowing. And not just that, companies with credible SR tend to build stronger trust with customers, business partners, and also regulators. And that trust can give you a competitive edge, especially if you are supplying to a larger multinational client who are now making sustainability part of their uh, procurement requirements. In conclusion, SR goes beyond transparency. It helps in smarter planning, stronger performance, and clearer value creation of your business. Okay, I know these slides look a bit overwhelming, and honestly, this is the experience for most companies. For years, there were so many frameworks, guidelines, and ratings out there. I'm sure you're aware of that, like GRI, SASB, TCFD, not to mention CDP, and even local stock exchange requirements. And none of them were fully aligned with each other. And for people like you and me, this created a real challenge and a big question mark. So, where do I start? Which one matters? Which one do investors actually pay attention to? I believe many companies genuinely wanted to report properly. But because the landscape was so fragmented, duplicative, and to a certain extent, exhausting. So it just felt like a maze with no clear path. And here's the thing, the challenge was never about willingness, it was about fragmentation. Different frameworks were asking similar questions, but in different ways. They don't talk to each other. Metrics were inconsistent, definitions were not clear, and most importantly, disclosure were often not connected with, very important, financial performance. That made sustainability look soft, even though the risks were very real. So the real problem wasn't a lack of effort, it was a lack of clarity. So after all the confusion, here's the good news. Things are finally coming together. Meet the ISSB, which stands for the International Sustainability Standards Board. It was created specifically to solve the problems I shared earlier. So instead of companies trying to juggle between frameworks and standards, the ISSB brings the most widely used frameworks together into one global baseline for SR. And you now have a much clearer, more streamlined path moving forward. So here's the thing where everything starts to click. Instead of creating something from scratch, the ISSB took the most important parts of the frameworks that the company were already using and unified them into one consistent, globally recognized baseline. That means your reporting now is clearer, more comparable, and much easier to start. And that's exactly why so many companies and regulators are now adopting ISSB, because it finally gives everyone a common reporting language. As you can see here, ISSB is already being adopted worldwide, and is more than 50% of global GDP have either already adopted ISSB or are actively moving towards it. The big picture is very clear. ISSB isn't simply just another framework. It's becoming the global reporting language. Your regulators, investors, and capital markets are all pushing for that one consistent baseline. So when you start reporting using ISSB, You are aligning with the global reporting trend. Here is where ISSB become very practical. The entire standard is built around 4 pillars: governance, strategy, risk management, and metrics and targets. Think of these 4 pillars as the foundation of your SR. So everything just flow from here. These 4 pillars connect your whole sustainability story, who is overseeing it, how is it tied to the business, how risks are managed, and what is actually being measured. One very important point to note, investors don't just want to see what your company is doing. They want to see how well you are managing sustainability risks and opportunities across your business. But structure is just half the story. What does it actually mean for your business at the end of the day? The 4 pillars don't just organize information. They create a universal way of reporting that everyone can understand, which means your investor, lenders, and even your customers can compare information and can compare companies and information more consistently, apples to apples. These pillars also connect sustainability directly to financial impact. They show how climate risk, the resource you use, and workforce issues can actually affect your P&L, your long-term value, and how resilient your business is. Because ISSB is built around decision useful information. Very important this term, decision useful information. The focus is not on how lengthy your report is. It's on what truly helps your stakeholders, which are your investors, lenders, and others, to make informed decisions. So in short, these 4 pillars help turn your SR into something structured, comparable, and financially meaningful, not just a compliance exercise. All right, let's start with the first pillar, governance. So what exactly is governance? It is actually about who is driving sustainability at the top of your company. Take this example, EcoWorld, a property developer in Malaysia. They show what good governance looks like. Their board doesn't just sign off on policies. They actually actively review sustainability performance, take climate risk into consideration when making decisions, and approve ESG targets. As you can see, they have a very clear 3-tier setup: the board, the sustainability committee, and an ESG working group. That means sustainability is built into their business, not kept in a silo. So what does that tell their investors? It tells them one thing: the company takes sustainability seriously, with clear accountability at every level. ISSB always start with governance. You know why? Because when there's no oversight, data has no credibility. Second pillar, strategy. Take a look at Nestle. They don't just review their environmental impact to tick boxes. They actually build sustainably right into most of their manufacturing line, their sourcing, production, and production design. And when you do that, something changes. Sustainability starts generating real value. It helps you manage your business risk, drive innovation, and stay ahead of your competitors. What you see here is sustainability fully integrated into the long-term business strategy with clear targets, clear timeline, and clear capital planning alignment. Under ISSB, companies must explain how sustainability risks and opportunities actually shape their business model and future profitability. That's why I always say it's linked to your financial performance. And the third pillar, risk management. This pillar is all about how well your company identifies and managing sustainability and climate-related risks. as well as how ready you are to respond when things change. Take Singtel as an example, a telco company based in Singapore. You see, their risk management process is not a one-off audit. It's a very systematic, continuous loop moving from rigorous identification and analysis all the way through to actionable treatment. It's never an ad hoc reactions, not one-off assessment, but a structured, reputable system where they identify, analyze, evaluate, treat, monitor, and the last one, report. This structure shows that risk management is not just about compliance. It's about staying one step ahead. When done right, it helps you future-proof your business and turn risk into real opportunities for long-term growth. The last pillar, which is metrics and targets. This is where sustainability become real and measurable. We're talking about quantified metrics, time-bound targets, and consistent progress tracking. Take this Nestle Pakistan as an example. They actually map out a clear path with time-bound targets and quantitative metrics that show exactly where they are heading and how far they've come. What matters here is not just about the ambition. Always remember, it's about being consistent in tracking, reporting, and communicating progress. That's how sustainability become auditable, comparable, and decision useful. Okay, now here's a really important mindset shift. Under ISSB, sustainability is not just about your impact to the environment or society. It's actually about the impact on your business value. If a sustainability issues can affect your P&L or risk profile, it becomes financially material. And if it's financially material, you must disclose. That is why ISSB used the term sustainability-related financial disclosure. So, what does that mean to you? You are expected to explain three things. One, what sustainability risks and opportunities your company faces. Two, how this could affect your financial position and future prospect. The last one is how your management is responding through strategy, risk management, and targets. So under ISSB, climate change, resource scarcity, labor issues, and supply chain disruption are not treated as soft topics. They are treated the same way as your financial risk, like interest rate risk, currency risk, or credit risk. These are all real issues that can affect your business performance, stability, and long-term value. Okay, now let's translate what I have shared earlier into a real business situation. These are not hypothetical climate stories, yeah? These are exactly the type of disclosure that investors and banks are now expect under ISSB. Here's a simple example of a physical risk turning into a real financial issue. You see, because of heavier and more frequent rains in Guatemala, coffee harvests are being disrupted. When it disrupted, supply become less predictable, right? And farmers face higher losses. Therefore, the importer ends up paying about 10% more for coffee beans every rain season. Now, from an ISSB perspective, this is not just an environmental story. It actually directly hits the company's financial. Cost of goods sold go up, profit margins get squeezed, and earnings become more volatile because prices fluctuate seasonally. So under sustainability-related financial disclosure, the company needs to explain the three things. So what climate risk it is exposed to, how that risk affects procurement costs and margin, and lastly, how management plans to manage or mitigate that risk going forward. And here's another example, this time showing how a climate-related event translates directly into operational and financial risk. When flooding occurs, warehouses become inaccessible or congested. Therefore, all the parcel cannot be processed on time, creating backlogs and delivery delays. And those delays lead to service penalty from corporate clients. And over time, loss of customers who simply switch to more reliable providers. So what does it mean financially? Immediate revenue loss from penalties and cancel contracts. And also higher operating costs from overtime, temporary storage, and resourcing of rerouting of delivery. And in longer term, reputational damage, which affects future business and market share. So under ISSB, this type of exposure must be disclosed because it directly affects your cash flow, your cost structure, and your risk profile. I understand that for many companies, the hardest part is knowing where to start. So here is a very simple roadmap to help you kickstart. Think of SR as an ongoing cycle. You don't need a 100-page report on day one. Just be realistic. Start with what you already have, then build and improve over time. And I want you to remember this. SR is a journey. It's about progress, not perfection. Each cycle helps you gain clearer insights and create stronger business value. Before you jump into the actual reporting process, there are 3 principles that will make your life much easier. First, just start with what you already have. Your electricity bills, your HR records, your fuel receipts, and vendor information are more than enough to get started. Then, you don't need to aim for perfection in year 1. Your first report will have gaps, and that's fine, and it's perfectly normal. Remember, what you have started is more important than perfection. Last one, sustainability is a team effort. Finance, HR, operations, procurement, everyone plays a role. The earlier you get them in, the smoother the whole process gets. Always have these 3 principles in mind, and you will find your reporting journey a lot more manageable and realistic than you think. And here's something really important. You cannot produce a meaningful report unless you fully understand your business. That's create value and where it is exposed. This is why ISSB always start with your business model and value chain, because risks and opportunities looks very different depending on who you are. A factory, a retailer, a bank, or a logistic company all face different challenges. So start by mapping out your operations. Where do you operate? Who are your customers and suppliers? What external issues are you facing? Could it be regulations, customer expectations, or investor interest? And once you have all these, everything else in your report starts to make sense. Then after you map up your operations, the next step is to focus on your effort. And that's where materiality comes in. Now, materiality simply means focus. Not everything is equally important in your business. Under ISSB, an issue is material if it can reasonably affect your company's future cash flows, which access to finance or cost of capital. So the question is not about what looks good to report. It is about what could actually move your financial performance or risk profile. Ask yourself just 2 things. Which ESG topics could highly impact your business success or reputation? And what do your customers, your investors, or regulators care about the most? Those are the material issues, and that's exactly the focus of your reporting. Right. Next step, is to look at what data you already own. Like I mentioned earlier, most of businesses already have more data than they realize. It's just sitting in could be your finance records, HR systems, procurement files, facility data, and operations reports. So you don't need to reinvent the wheel. Just start with what you already have, then identify the gaps and assign clear data ownership. You'll be surprised of how much of your report can already start building today. And then set your baseline. Think of baseline data as your starting point. It allows you to answer the very critical questions that your board will ask. Where are we today? And how do we know if we are improving? Without a baseline, your targets have no credibility. And without credibility, progress cannot be shared. So start simple. Monthly electricity, water, or fuel use is more than enough to begin with. At this stage, make sure don't stress about perfection or precision. What matters most is consistency. Once your business is in place, the next piece is teamwork. SR is never a one-person job. Finance can help with data, HR tracks your social indicators, and operations know what's really happening on the ground. Even for smaller company, appointing a sustainability champion can make a huge difference. Because at the end of the day, it's not just about data collection. Remember what I mentioned just now? It's about governance and also accountability. The next step is turning your data into an actionable plan. A roadmap comes in handy here. It helps translate ambition into a phased, realistic plan that you can easily execute. Always remember, start small. It could be switching to LED lights or cutting down on your waste, and then gradually move your way up to bigger goals like renewables or product redesign. Always remember, a simple, clear timeline makes a difference. It makes your sustainability real and part of your everyday business planning. Once your roadmap is in place, the next thing is setting clear target to guide your progress. And remember, the good targets are specific, measurable, and time-bound. Always start simple. It could be a 5% cut in electricity use or recycling 30% of your waste. Something small, clear targets like this are enough to get you started and keep you accountable. Then, as your data become more consistent, you can widen your KPIs to include social and governance areas too. Always remember, it's about progress. I always stress this. It's about progress, not about perfection. ISSB is built on continuous improvement. A simple first-year reports help build awareness and data discipline. Your report doesn't have to be perfect. You just need to start working on it. At each cycle, you improve, your data gets sharper, your story gets clearer, and your team becomes more invested in the journey. The most important thing is not where you start, but that you start early, build credibility, and improve consistently. Because early movers have better access to capital, stronger customer trust, and more resilient to regulatory and climate shocks. Of course, every journey comes with a few challenges, and that's completely normal. Sometimes the data is scattered, resources are tight, or management buy-in is still a work in progress, and that's okay. Don't stress about it. The key is to start with what you already have, build it into your daily routines. Then take small steps. Even something as simple as tracking your electricity use and showing the savings can start building momentum. And here's the good news. Every challenge has a practical next step. Most SMEs already have their data. It's just not all in one place. Always remember, it doesn't need to be perfect from day one. What matters is getting started. So, for companies that are just starting out, your first year is about building foundations, don't need to cover everything. Focus on wins that are easy to achieve, things that are low cost, easy to measure, and clearly linked to your business efficiency. Just start small, get your data discipline right, show some early results, and then build from there year by year. Remember, every big sustainability report starts exactly where you are right now. And many companies tend to ask, how do we know if our report is actually good? And the answer is very simple. A good report is not about being perfect. It's about being credible, consistent, and decision useful. Weak reports, on the other hand, tend to have three things in common. Mostly storytelling with no real metrics, overly positive with no risk disclosed, and completely connected from business strategy and completely disconnected from business strategy or financial performance. So a good report builds trust because it's transparent, structured, and improvement focused, not because it looks glossy. And here's the reality. Investors, banks, and regulators can tell the difference immediately. So those who can provide credible data will stay in the value chain. And those cannot will face higher financing costs or be excluded from tenders altogether. So once you have started, the journey doesn't stop there. SR is not a one-time exercise. It grows and matures together with your business. The key is to weave it into your roadmap, into your strategy, and don't treat it like a yearly checklist. The more you refine and improve, the stronger your resilience and credibility become. Company that starts early learn faster and attract better partners, unlock more long-term value. This is how reporting moves from compliance to value creation. And always remember, SR is no longer about reputation. It's about resilience, access to capital, and long-term enterprise value. Okay, do you have any questions? Or is there any key takeaway from today that stood out to you? Maybe you can drop it in the chat. I would love to read them.